Hello, Premananda. Welcome to the interview with Jetzt-TV. And thank you for the invitation to your community, the Open Sky House, close to Cologne. The questions will be asked by Devasetu, Birgit, and me.
Okay. So, I start. I also say hello.
Okay.
Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to have an interview with you. In the first place, I want to say personally that I enjoyed very much your last online satsang on Monday. When you were, I was watching it, preparing the interview, and you were absolutely talking about me when talking about the Enneagram number 4. I had just had some, not really a fight, but something with my husband the night before, and then I had to laugh that much when you were talking about it. And I'm very grateful that you share the satsangs online. It's really great, not only for me, I think for many people. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very interesting because actually your friend here, Devasetu, he came here last year, just almost a week after I had decided to stop traveling, giving so many meetings and staying more at home. And then he showed up about a week later and told us about this online TV possibility. Mm-hmm. So now I'm at home, but now I'm working again. So
fine, really great. Okay. The first question I want to ask you is because I'm an astrologer, I'd love to know what's your sign.
I'm Sagittarius.
Okay. Good. Do you feel you're a real Sagittarius?
People say I'm quite direct.
Okay.
And I think I'm happiest being direct.
Yeah.
So I guess I am Sagittarius. Yeah.
Okay. Do you basically like to be in Germany? Or do you plan to leave here?
It's interesting because for about 20 years now, I haven't really decided any of those kind of things by myself. Mm-hmm. In fact, if I go back in my whole life, I can even see other important moments when I didn't decide something. Mm-hmm. So I feel very much supported in a kind of flow of destiny. And this flow brought me from Australia to Germany, mm-hmm. which I would never have imagined when I was living in Australia. But that's what happened. And so now I've been coming and going from Germany for the last 5 years. And the community developed 5 years ago in Germany. Mm-hmm. The community itself is very happy in the house where we are now for the interview. It's a beautiful house. It's like living in a palace. And we have more and more guests coming here and liking to come here. Mm-hmm. So that's very homey. So in that sense, I can't imagine shifting, you know. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I would need to say that the community started pretty much 100% German people, and now we have 50% German people, and the other 50 is many other countries. Mm-hmm. So we have a Russian, English, Dutch, Danish, Belgium, and so on, a Frenchman. So it's becoming more international. So in fact, as I spend most of my time in the house, I don't feel I'm living in Germany.
That's nice. You offer such a life in your community, and you just said, that's what I wanted to ask, it's existing since 5 years?
Yes.
So yes. You say, are there any preconditions for coming to your community?
We just have one condition, and that is that you're really interested in awakening and living this awakening. Mm-hmm. So our community is only for this purpose. It's not a hanging out place. It's kind of intense place for somebody who really likes to wake up, mm-hmm. and who likes then to do the necessary work to sustain that, to ground that inside. Mm-hmm. So that's the point of the community. So if somebody really likes that, totally welcome. Everybody's welcome.
Are only single people here, or do you also have couples?
I mean, I see the community as a place where people stay for a shorter time, maybe 2 or 3 years. It's not a place to live your whole life necessarily. We have people who've been here for 4 or 5 years. So some of the people that started the community are still living here. Generally, my advice to people when they come here is that to get the maximum benefit for this kind of short time you're here, it's better you stand on your own feet. So we've had a number of couples coming here to the community who, when they live in the community, are living somehow, if you like, from their own feet rather than being half of something.
Okay.
And also I would say we like children, so we've had quite a lot of children living here. At the moment it's a bit less, but we're very much open to have children living here.
Besides satsang, do you also offer personal meetings? So eye-to-eye meetings?
Yeah, people come to the house and meet me. Yeah.
Okay, only for the people who live here, or also for people who visit you?
No, everybody, anybody or everybody. I'm available on the telephone, through Skype, through personal meeting. I'm just available.
Okay. I'd like to ask you something on your name, Premananda. What's the meaning of the name, and where or whom did you get it from?
The name came to me in a kind of strange way, actually, because when I was living in India with Osho, I had a name from him. And then later, when I went to Papaji, who was, I would say now, really my master at the moment. I mean, he's like my master now. It never really happened that he gave me a name, because I had a lot of contact with him in the beginning, but then later, for the most of the 5 years, I never talked to him in satsang, and so there was never really a situation where he might have given me a name. And I had this idea that I don't want another Indian name. So I was happy with my birth name, and I left India with this birth name, and that felt actually the best thing to have would be a Western name. But then later, on one of my visits to India, there was a man called Satchidanand, who's a beautiful being, very sweet man, very lovely man, and he was heading a big ashram in Kerala called Ananda Ashram. And I'd interviewed him for the Blueprints book, and I visited him after, and something strange happened one day, because there's another very wonderful master called Nityananda. He was the master from Muktananda, and now he's also the master of Gurumai. So this whole big organization, I think they're established more in the States than in Europe. Nityananda is like the grandfather, and he was a contemporary of Ramana Maharshi, and it seems clear that he's a very important master, but perhaps not so well known in the West. And I've always had a connection with him. And when we go to this ashram in Kerala, we also visit his original ashram. There's a small ashram north of Kerala where Nityananda started his teaching. And there's also a cave where he did his tapas as a young man. And both places are very energetic. And one time we were in this small ashram, and I was opening a book from Nityananda, about Nityananda, and there was this word Ananda. And suddenly, for some reason, I got such a feeling like, I would really like to be called Ananda. So that afternoon I had a meeting with Satchidanand, and I was saying to him, this thing happened, and would he like to give me this name, Ananda? And instead of Ananda, he gave me Premananda. So Premananda, Prem is the word for love, like the everyday kind of love. Ananda is the word for divine love or bliss. And together they might mean something like unconditional love. And this was a name which I didn't really want, because it was a Hindu name. And also I felt like this was a very strong kind of demand on me, because I felt 4 years ago I wasn't very unconditional about my love, and I felt like I would be this would be a constant reminder, and in a way it has been, and I think it's been quite useful to be. And I feel like now, if I look back, my love is more unconditional now than it was, say, 4 years ago. So the name is working for me.
Beautiful. Okay, you just mentioned the word master. What is a master to you? What's your definition?
Well, what comes up right now is that a master is somebody who shows you that you're not different from him. Mm-hmm. And this is actually was told to me by Swami Dayananda, I interviewed him for the Blueprints book. And we discussed this subject, what is a master? And I was saying, well, in the West, people are very nervous about the master. And he was saying, well, yes, people have these psychological problems about authority, which they need to sort out. And he's one of the most respected masters in India, a very important guy. He gets to meet, very important politicians and so on. So he's got 3 ashrams, he's the main Vedanta teacher. So he's an important guy, and he was saying, well, a master is just somebody who shows you that you are the same as him. You see, and I found that very humble and ordinary, and a very beautiful definition, because then what is the reason to feel any kind of stuff, you see? He's just going to show you that you're the same as him. You see, that's probably not fitting most people's idea of a master, because unfortunately some masters, they want to make themselves separate, they want to make themselves special, they sit on a gold chair and wear special clothes and such things. I find all this activity is not very helpful, because the reality is that we're all realized always, you see, so nobody's really special, nobody's really different. So I think maybe that's anyway changing, this way of behavior for masters is changing, but in my day I spent many years with Osho, and he was rather good at making himself special, actually. He said, I'm an ordinary man, but then he arrived in a stretch Rolls Royce, on a marble stage, wearing specially designed clothes with jeweled wristwatches, So although he said, I'm an ordinary man, everybody didn't really believe him.
Okay, you've just answered, I think, 5 questions I've had. Is a master or a guru necessary for awakening?
My own sense is absolutely essential, absolutely essential. Mm-hmm. Because what does it mean, awakening, you see? The name awakening suggests some kind of, I'm asleep and I'm going to wake up, So what is that about? And it seems to be clear that what it's really about is that, we're very much attached to all kinds of ideas and concepts and structures, you see. And we have to wake up from all that, you see. So you need somebody on the outside who's going to be a mirror for all that stuff, you see. Because you can hear somebody talking about the conditioned mind and the ego, and you can say very easily, yes, I agree, I understand, and all that. But as soon as you're caught by somebody, in some kind of structure, like this week in our retreat, we've had 2 people ready to pack their bags and go, you see, because their ego got very, very upset, you see. So then they would just rather leave than try to understand, you see. So actually now they're both happy again, because I took the time next day to talk with them and explain to them what had happened and to show them, And actually it turned out they were both sincere people who really wanted to look, but they couldn't because it was too painful somehow. They were too much in reaction. So I think in those kind of situations, you see, which is going to happen if you start to look at the structures, you need somebody on the outside who has some compassion and some understanding and some wisdom maybe, who can show you why you're acting in a certain way, you see. And once you see it, then probably you stop acting in that way, you see. I mean, that's a very small part of what a master does, but I think that's a very essential part of what a master does. I think another very important part of what a master does is to be like a constant reminder for a possibility. So, for example, in my own personal case, I came to Osho some 20 odd years ago, and just by meeting this man, just by him sitting there, I was directly confronted by the fact that it is possible that I could change my life and have a completely different way of living, And so he was the first person I'd met, he was the first human being. I was about 30 years old. I'd met lots of quite interesting people, but I'd never met anybody who could show me the possibility of leading my life in a completely different way, you see. And that completely touched me when I was 30, and I basically made the decision to change my life. And I basically then stayed with Osho and surrendered to Osho and let him guide me on the journey I followed, you see. So, for me that was a totally essential moment, the meeting with the Master. And I think for many people, the modern world gives them, so much stress, so much pressure, the everyday life, that to be reminded of another possibility is really very beautiful, very essential, I think. And it's not just something you need once, it's something you need many times. You need to be constantly reminded. So we have people that will come here to spend, say, a week. They open up very much, and then they go back to their own life situation, and things tend to close down again. So they need a reminder, a constant reminder of another possibility. And for that, you need a master.
One more question. Do you have a certain message or teaching? And if so, what's the core of your teaching?
Well, I don't personally have any message. I see myself as a messenger. So I would see myself as a messenger for what I've learned from my three masters. So that's from Osho, from Papaji, and from Ramana Maharshi. So these three masters came very strongly into my life, and I gained various knowledge and understanding from each of them. And now I see myself simply a messenger for what they were telling to me, passing it on to other people. So I don't have a teaching, my teaching, It's like an impersonal teaching, and probably this impersonal teaching is handed down from generation to generation. And so my part is only my personal way of communicating, if you like. So that's the personal part. But what I'm trying to communicate is particularly to see ourselves for who we really are. You see, because most people are completely conditioned to believe that they are this movie, my life, me. You see, and so the central effort, if you like, is to try to show people that is all that which seems so real is actually an illusion, and that there's something else which, if they could become quiet enough, they would naturally come in contact with, something that's always there inside, and which is actually very easy to come in contact with, because that's who we are. So, in a way, there is no real teaching. There is a kind of direction to look, you could say, a reminder to look what's really going on. And so, in a way, what I'm doing isn't even spiritual. It's not even religious. It's just to help people to look for themselves and to find out what is the truth for themselves.
What does it mean to be quiet or to become quiet?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because be quiet is the kind of thing you can see in a library, and then in a library it means don't talk, But Papaji was often telling people that his teaching was be quiet. So what does it mean then, be quiet? So I think in his sense of it, be quiet means, yes, you stop talking, you stop being so noisy, you stop being so actively busy in the mind. So in that sense, it's like the library. But it means more than that. It means to fall deeply inside. It means to become aware of your nature, your true nature, and to remind yourself, if you like, through being self-aware, to be reminded constantly of that. So I would say be quiet is like a road sign, it's pointing you in the direction of going deeply inside.